When I finished playing 5.1, I felt like a China when she went inside Shilonen's workshop, buried under tons of ancient books, and that's because we learned so much in this Archon quest and it's gonna be hard to explain everything, but first. This is a theory video and leaks are prohibited. I will use information available in the game, but my theories and conclusions are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I got something right and it's confirmed in a later update of the game itself. Since we got so much to talk about, I'll cut the intro very short, so awaken your ancient names and let's start the video. In 5.1 we learned what Mavuika's plan was really about, but also why Capitano is in Natlan. We already knew that Mavuika was waiting for all 6 heroes to awaken, but we didn't really know what their role actually was. Before we arrived in Natlan, Shilonen, bearing the name Baraka, Blessing, Ian-san bearing the name Uwezo, Prowess, and Kinich bearing the name Malipo, Turnfire, had already awakened. In 5.0, Mualani awoke her ancient name, Umoja, Unity, and in 5.1, and this is for those who said that it was impossible for him to be the hero, Ororon, bearing the name BD, Devotion, and Chaska, bearing the name Vuka, Transcension, awoke, so Mavuika's plan was finally ready to proceed. The 6 heroes allowed Mavuika to unleash just that one time a power stronger than any Archon, strong enough to weaken and push the Abyss to the deepest part of the Night Kingdom, so that it wouldn't be able to invade for a long time, giving her the time to then go where the Abyss now is and defeat it once and for all. Mavuika defined this power she used both as the full potential of her divine throne, but above all, the power Xbalanque convinced Ronova, the Shade or Ruler of Death, to lend the people of Natlan for this precise occasion. On the other hand, Capitano went to Natlan to achieve a similar goal, that is to save the nation from the Abyss, but his plan was radically different. When he saw that Mavuika's plan wasn't going anywhere because she was still waiting for the last 2 heroes, he tried to steal the Gnosis, which is capable of sacrificing the souls, memories, history, legends, everything contained in the Night Kingdom, to weave a net that would have protected the ley lines from the Abyss, preventing it from invading Natlan. Capitano lost to Mavuika, but Ororon somehow found 3 scholars not even Mavuika knew the existence of, and this is really sus if you ask me, whose research revealed yet another way to achieve basically the same result as using Gnosis. The Fatui excavated specific relics from the ancient dragon civilization that I suppose contained their ancient powers, in order to activate an ancient mechanism that would have still sacrificed the contents and the whole Night Kingdom to use them as materials to reconstruct the broken ley lines of Natlan. In the end, the main difference between Mavuika and Capitano's plans is that Mavuika is trying to eradicate the problem once and for all while also protecting Natlan and its people, while Capitano's plan would have stopped the Abyss from invading, although not forever, and it would have caused the people to lose their identities and memories, turning them into savages, empty husks of who they used to be. And for him, it's a fair price to pay because, just like we learned in Remuria, a new civilization would have appeared sooner or later. The problem is that neither the net created by the Gnosis nor the newly reconstructed ley lines are immune to the Abyss, so history could easily repeat itself in the future. When we stopped Capitano's plan, the power of the ancient dragons he used on the device awoke Yohualtekutin, the Lord of the Night, which gave Mavuika another option, although it's basically the same as Capitano's plan. She is ready to sacrifice herself and, as a consequence, the entire Night Kingdom to reconstruct the ley lines, but the consequences are still the same. The people would suffer from memory loss, mental disorders, and cognitive issues, so they would still turn into savages and the entire history of Natlan would be erased. There's just one thing that doesn't make sense to me. Mavuika is trying to defeat the Abyss on her own because she doesn't want the Night Kingdom and the rules written in it to be destroyed, but the Lord of the Night is still about to die. She was able to delay her death by sleeping for thousands of years, but once she dies, the Night Kingdom will inevitably disappear with her, and we already listed the consequences. The best option here would be to find a way to reconstruct the ley lines without destroying the Night Kingdom, so there must be something that will be used as material for this reconstruction in order to then move the contents of the Night Kingdom into the new ley lines, and my intuition tells me that the blazing flint ore that we're getting from each tribe's repetition system, a strange material that emits a gentle gleam that illuminates the night, might end up being what we need, although there's still a celestial nail in the Night Kingdom that no one in the game has even mentioned yet. There's also the fact that we mentioned the Loom of Fate, which, according to the Lord of the Night, would be the perfect solution to the problem. So if we see either Lumine or Dainsleif in the 5.3 trailer, then we know how the problem will be solved, unless this is something that will be fixed later, say in 5.6. Now, the Lord of the Night revealed a lot about the past. We knew that the Dragon Sovereign of Fire, Shukaatl, got corrupted by most likely forbidden knowledge, since that's what the dragons were looking for, and he burned down everything in sight, including the Heavenly Envoys, also known as Angels, and the Irminsul tree that existed in Natlan, but the last Heavenly Envoy used the remaining leaves on the severed tree to survive and turn them into the Night Kingdom. What we learned in 5.1 is that the Dragon Sovereign was fighting against the Descender, the Heavenly Principles, but also that Ronova, the ruler of death, a higher being more ancient than any Archon, together with a few other angels that apparently still exist in Natlan and their devolved counterparts, the Sealies, helped Yohualtecuhtin in the creation of the Night Kingdom. Then, in 5.0, we learned that one of the dragons, Washaclaun Ubakan, the Sage of the Stolen Flame, left the Kingdom of the Dragons, found the humans, who were savages because the ley lines had been destroyed, created Hanan Pacha and taught first Chak and then the other humans how to use Phlogiston, so the first tribe was founded. But it developed without being connected to the Night Kingdom. Chak eventually fought and imprisoned the Sage, and then, on his very last day, Chak reconnected Natlan to the Night Kingdom, called forth his dead companions, and the Wayab were born, which is why I think the Wayab are his companions, and maybe they were the original bearers of the names of the 6 heroes. Millennia later, Xbalanque was born. He freed the Sage and fought against the Dragon Sovereign. Both Xbalanque and the Sovereign died, but Xbalanque met Ronova, the ruler of death, and basically forced her to write a specific set of rules into the Night Kingdom to aid Natlan in the fight against the Abyss. Xbalanque first requested and obtained the ability to be resurrected in case the warriors won against the Abyss but died in the process, so the Ode of Resurrection, and the ability for a human to ascend to the Divine Throne and ignite their inner flame, becoming an Archon. Not yet satisfied, Xbalanque also forced her to lend him her own power so that, when Natlan was about to face inevitable and definitive defeat, the Archon will be able to use it just once and win. Because Ronova's dominion is death, the price the Archon would have to pay to use her power is also death. Furthermore, this Archon must not fear their own death and accept it, otherwise countless innocent people would lose their lives until the price is fully paid. Once the negotiation was successfully concluded, Xbalanque, completely covered in flames, came back to life and became the first Pyro Archon. Now, Ronova said that she is merely a shade and she doesn't have as much freedom as Xbalanque thought, while the Lord of the Night defined her actions as an act of reparation, as if she felt at fault for the state Natlan and Tevat are in, but the shades, who apparently are not as powerful as we thought, can fix the problem and can deal with the Abyss. Furthermore, they answer to a higher being, the Heavenly Principles, who were dissatisfied with what Ronova did, so they probably don't really care for the humans, but we will talk about the shades in detail in the last chapter of the video. Lastly, we learned that there is a huge difference between ascending to Archonhood and wielding Ronova's power, although they work in a similar way. Whereas igniting a human's inner flame results in an amount of power that depends on the capacities of that specific person, so they'll never acquire a power they are incapable of wielding, igniting Ronova's flame results in a power that is based on her capacities, so only few people like Mavuika can withstand that amount of power and only temporarily, or her body would just give up. Of course, now that Mavuika used Ronova's powers, she is doomed to die, and Citlali confirmed it with her divination, so the question we all want to be answered is how she's gonna get away with it. Do I have an answer for that? Maybe, but let's move on to the next chapter of this video, trust me. It's time to talk about Capitano. Well, my theories about him being Tenoch or a fusion between Tenoch and Menogias went out of the window. Capitano is a survivor of Caria who, when his nation was definitely beyond saving, fled to Natlan with his platoon and fought alongside the Natlanese to at least prevent their nation from falling just like his. He joined the Masters of the Nightwind and befriended the then chief Aizu, who taught him his tribe's spells and techniques, and when he was about to die, told him the secret function of the Gnosis, since Mavuika always denied his multiple requests to use it. Now, when we talk about Capitano, we need to distinguish between who and what he is. The first one is simple. He was a Carian commander who had a very important role in the kingdom, which allowed him to meet Lumine, the princess. As for what he is, it seems that he is carrying inside of him the souls of the soldiers of his platoon, like Guthred, the guy who possessed Ororon. This theory is mainly based on what Ororon and Capitano said in 5.1. Ororon felt something unusual but familiar in Capitano, which stems from his experience of having multiple souls inside of him when he was a child, and when Mavuika wounded Capitano, Ororon felt a soul trying to escape from him, reason why Capitano then asked,
"You heard something from here, didn't you?"
Very interesting about Capitano is how the Lord of the Night said that Ronova set him on his long journey, which might be the reason why he's still alive despite his erosion. And just like everybody figured out, he's not in Natlan just to save the nation, he also has another goal, that is to defeat his final foe. We can exclude that this foe is the Abyss because he made a distinction between Mavuika's final enemy, so the Abyss, and his own enemy. To defeat this final foe, Capitano went back to the Lord of the Night to ask for her help in doing so, even though he just tried to sacrifice her, but let's ignore that. Considering his request, we could assume that he wants to defeat the sinners, but the Lord of the Night is literally stuck in Natlan and has one foot in the grave, so she wouldn't be able to assist him at all. What I think is that Capitano is trying to defeat his enemy, who is probably also Ronova's enemy, indirectly. He wants to use his life, or what's left of it, to pay either for Mavuika's debt toward the Ruler of Death, or for Shilonen's debt to forge the Traveler's ancient name, which would explain why he kept saving her, or maybe both, using the souls he's been carrying inside of him. He said that he needs the Lord of the Night's help to give Natlan a hope for the future, so probably Mavuika's survival, and for the sake of the countless lost souls, most likely those of Caria, so he would need the Traveler to survive and potentially defeat the Heavenly Principles, his final foe. Something also interesting about Capitano is how he works for another survivor of Caria, Pierro, and considering his righteousness, I highly doubt that a commander like him would follow the orders of someone who is lower ranked. We know of just one other soldier of Caria who is higher ranked, who lost one of his eyes and suddenly vanished from history, Knight Marshal Amfortas. Yes, we do know that Pierro was a royal mage, but realistically speaking, does that prevent him from being a higher ranking soldier? Furthermore, he was a member of the Alberich clan and proclaimed himself regent of Caria during the evacuation, and he was petitioned multiple times to stop King Ermen from using forbidden knowledge, so he might have realized its dangers and tried to convince the others to desist, but we all know how things ended. There is actually also the possibility that Pierro is Hroptatyr, since it's one of Odin's names and he also has only one eye, but I doubt Capitano would follow one of the sinners, considering they didn't even lift a finger to try and save Caria. Capitano also reminded us, well, me above all because I believed him a little bit in 4.7, that Dainsleif is the sassiest person in Teyvat. The last time Capitano saw Dainsleif was between 500 and 400 years ago, when he was still traveling with Lumine, so it was still too early for the curse to erode the body. I mean, even Clothar's body was completely fine, although I can't really say the same about his mind. Anyway, 400 years later though, Capitano's body turned into a pitch black figure and his mouth doesn't even move when he speaks, but Dainsleif's body is still mostly fine. Now, as we said before, Capitano works for yet another survivor of Caria, Pierro, and his body also looks fine, but considering how Capitano was surprised when he heard about Dainsleif, there must be a valid reason that makes sense for Pierro's body, but that cannot be applied to Dainsleif. Considering that Dainsleif's pain and hatred are way stronger than Capitano's, despite him having lost his family and friends during the Cataclysm, but also that, again, he is the definition of sus, I'm starting to believe that Dainsleif also acquired the same world-shattering powers the sinners received during the Cataclysm, and when Lumine said that he is an enemy and that he did nothing to save the people of Caria, she might have been telling the truth. He was probably too focused on using those powers to try and defeat his brother, Vedrfolnir, and the other sinners that he ignored the tragedy that was happening in Caria and failed to take action where it was actually needed. Going back to Mavuika, her plan is to defeat the Abyss once and for all, so the obvious question would be, what is the Abyss? Ever since we've arrived in Natlan, we've been told how the Abyss acts as a slightly intelligent consciousness that suddenly became more cunning during the Cataclysm, and then in 5.1 we witnessed how it could sense Mavuika's plan getting closer to its completion, so it launched a full-on attack out of desperation, also knowing Mavuika's current weakness without her Arcane's powers. Then, sensing that it was its last chance, the Abyss just went all out in a last attempt to win, opening that weird thing in the sky, spawning abyssal pylons and plants everywhere to overwhelm Natlan. Now, that thing in the sky has been defined by Xilonen as the heart of the Abyss, while Kinich called it the source of abyssal energy, but we don't really have a precise definition of what it actually was, although it was sentient because it saw Mavuika attacking it and tried to protect itself. Beside that, the description of the new enemy, the Tenebrous Mimiflora, is very interesting because those plant-looking monsters that look like smaller versions of the thing in the sky are said to be abyssal monsters that descended from the deep, dark depths of a twisted and alien world, and they look like plants because they're trying to understand and imitate the tree-like world, so that. Furthermore, after almost 2 whole years, we finally heard about the Light and Human realms, and we know that there is a third one as well, the Void realm. Out of pure logic, if the Light realm was ruled by the 7 Dragon Sovereigns and the Human realm is ruled by the 7 Archons, the Void realm must be ruled by at the very least one being, although 7 rulers may actually make sense. Considering how Mavuika has been talking about the Abyss as a tangible entity that can be physically found in a specific place and be defeated, she must have been talking about its ruler, or one of the 7 hypothetical rulers from before, that has been orchestrating the invasion of Natlan. Of course, we have never heard of a ruler or rulers of the Abyss, so I could be completely wrong, or this is a new entity or group of entities that will be revealed for the first time in 5.3. Either way, this is as far as I can speculate, but I want to share a feeling I have about the Abyss. We know that the vat has been capsized, so the Abyss may have ended up in a different section of the microcosm. What if the Abyss is not invading Tevat out of a simple and primitive desire of conquest, but is actually trying to take back what was once its own land? Food for thought? Our next topic is the Traveler's ancient name. Xilonen told us that forging a name for an outlander who has no ties to Natlan is impossible, because whatever he might do in Natlan won't be recognized and recorded by the Wyob. When the Lord of the Night woke up, things changed entirely because she rules over the Night Kingdom, and she reminded Xilonen that forging this specific ancient name will claim her life as a consequence, because although these forgers do use part of their life to forge new ancient names, unlike regular new ones, she won't be able to use concepts that already exist in the Night Realm and condense them into a new ancient name. She will have to input new concepts herself, condense them into a heroic deed, and protect them with all her life, like literally, until they take root and eventually become an acknowledged ancient name. As the Lord of the Night said, forging an ancient name is an act of creation, and just like for the ley lines, no one can create something from nothing, so in this case, Shilonen's life will be the required material. Considering how an ancient name allows a person and their future inheritor not to die, we could say it's a fair exchange, a life for a life. As I said before, there is a chance Capitano will pay the price in her stead, but if that theory is wrong, I would be very interested to know how they'll keep Xilonen alive, since, unlike Honkai Impact for example, in Genshin Impact every single playable character is alive. Well, apart from Chi-Chi, but she's a zombie, so in a sense she's kinda alive. Furthermore, Mavuika is fully aware of the price Xilonen would have to pay, and she cares about the people of Natlan to the point of sacrificing herself to protect them, so she won't allow Xilonen to die, of that I'm certain. That being said, if I had to guess the traveler's ancient name, I would probably pick Muokozi, Savior, because in the Pilgrim's Chronicles, the deeds the Lord of the Night is showing us are all about us saving someone. Another option could be Tumaini, Hope, which would fit Capitano's request to the Lord of the Night, giving Natlan a hope for the future. Now, since the last chapter of this video will be extremely heavy, let's take a break with 3 lighter topics: Citlali, Ororon, and Phlogiston. Well, Citlali is an enigma. She is Granny Itzli, people treat her as an elder, Xilonen says she's young, but I don't really think she is. Chanka said that it would be more accurate to define her as her great-great-grandmother, so 5 whole generations, which means Citlali should be around 150 years old. But then Citlali said that everybody rolls on the floor in their pajamas, whether they're 200 or 1000 years old, which makes me believe that she's actually 200 years old. Later then, she also said that if she didn't try to help Ororon, it would haunt her until she's 500 years old, so she basically said that she could get to that age. So what might be Citlali's hidden story? Well, remember what the Lord of the Night said? In Natlan there are few other angels apart from her, so I might be thinking that Citlali is half human and half angel, something similar to Ganyu basically. This would explain her lifespan, but also the fact that she's a living legend and how precise her divinations are, and thanks to Nabu Malikata and Sibylla, we know that the angels have that specific power. Something also interesting about Citlali is what she saw when she held the traveler's hand. Not only did she realize that he's a descender, but she actually saw his entire journey in Teyvat.
Wealth leads to unending conflicts between people,
which might refer to Kanria,
yet you alone transcend the value of gold.
So Liyue,
Baleful thunder,
Inazuma,
and wrathful waves bring terror to mortal hearts.
Fontaine,
yet again and again, you've braved them to find new worlds.
Maybe it's the Valyrian Mirage in Simulanka,
O weary yet free soul,
Mondstadt,
even the most verdant leaf in the forest will pray for your happiness and safe passage.
Sumeru. When it comes to the other revelations she had while she was drunk, that's slightly harder to figure out.
Behind this pitch-black curtain, a chapter of hatred reveals itself.
This seems to be the Abyss invasion that turned the sky black.
Behind the smoke, the lingering smoke.
This might refer to the fragments in the sky that, as in the cutscene, are behind the smoke from Mawika's punch.
Warning, warning! Red, the color of danger, has now arisen within that pair of eyes.
Now this is enigmatic. It may very well refer to something that hasn't happened yet, despite the fact that we saw red behind the fake sky. I say this because we don't really know whose pair of eyes she's talking about. When it comes to Ororon, he has been abandoned as an infant in the wild, probably because he only has half of his soul. The Masters of the Nightwind see this condition as an omen of illness and misfortune, but also as an opportunity to fix the damaged Night Kingdom that has been weakening due to the leak of souls that are unable to go back on their own. They had the lost souls enter the empty half of Ororon's soul to then sacrifice him to release those souls back into the Night Kingdom, but the ceremony failed and I think the Wyob messed up with it because Ororon was one of the heroes. As in my last video, my focus is still on his silver vision, something only Child, Arlecchino and the Fatui elite soldiers also have. I thought Ororon was gonna be the 10th unknown harbinger, but his constellation is Vampirum Spectrum, a kind of American carnivorous bat, and the symbol, a bat that looks like his coat, can be seen in the Pilgrim's Chronicles, so he doesn't have one of the constellations from the Harbinger's Wheel. Now, because I'm researching alchemy lately, most of us know that the Philosopher's Stone is a red stone capable of transmuting inferior metals, like lead, into higher metals, specifically gold, like the normal vision inlay. But many don't know that there is also another kind of Philosopher's Stone, a white stone, an incomplete Philosopher's Stone that can transmute copper into silver. With Ororon's soul also being incomplete, this seems to explain his silver vision, and this also applies to Arlecchino, who bears the first version of the Curse of Canria that might have affected her soul, and Child, who may have lost something when he fell into the abyss and met the narwhal. And side theory, this could explain why Surtalogi tasks Kirk with teaching him his legacy, the Foul Legacy. Maybe he wants to steal Child's body and bypass the curse? Who knows? Another option may be how Ororon's condition is seen as an omen of misfortune, just like Child has the power to overturn the world, and Arlecchino's power derived from her curse, making her definitely very dangerous. Yet another option is that silver represents how they defied fate. Ororon should have died in the Night Kingdom, but he didn't. Child fell into the abyss without a vision, so he should have died, and he even met the old devouring narwhal and survived it as well. And Arlecchino's vision story specifically says that her vision is proof that she defied fate. The last option is admittedly the least exciting. Ororon could simply own, for whatever reason, a delusion, just like Creepus did, and he used it, corrupting his vision and turning the inlay silver. At this point, I guess we'll have this question answered very soon in 5.2. What we learned about Phlogiston instead was really eye-opening. I used to believe that the elements of Tevat were the mirror images of the elements of the Dragon Sovereigns, but in reality, only Phlogiston, the primal fire, was used to create the human elements. Just like light refracts into 7 colors, so did Phlogiston evolve into 7 different elements, reason why the Saurians, the direct descendants of the ancient fire dragon, used the elements of the human realm. This also means that during the genesis of Tevat, each primordial element had a specific use. The primordial sea created life. Dendro, of which we don't have a primordial name for, nurtured life. Phlogiston created the elements, and the primordial sands were probably used to terraform Tevat. I still believe that Cryo, or the Eternal Ice maybe, was used to create the fake sky, which interestingly broke because of Mavuika's fire punch, you know, melt reaction. Primordial Electro is unknown since we never even heard of a Dragon Sovereign to represent it, while Primordial Animal might be the Thousand Winds, so they're associated with time, but here's the thing. The Thousand Winds have also been used to talk about Istaroth, while Mavuika defined Renova's power as her divine throne being unleashed, which makes me think that there might be 4 thrones that are directly connected to the Shades, and the other 2 might be the Electro Divine Throne, and I'll explain why in the next chapter, and the Hydro Divine Throne, which I'll explain in my next video about the Harbingers and the Gnosis. Now for the last chapter of this video, the Shades. So far, most of what I thought Simulanka hinted at about Natlan was actually right, like Mavuika and Capitano joining hands. In my Simulanka video, I said that the goddesses represented the Shades, because Simulanka is a perfect mirror image of Tevat, so the goddess of creation mirrored the Shade of Life, which I still think it's susty because both her and Alice have been associated with cubes. The goddess of prophecy instead I now believe to be the Shade of Death, Renova, because they both gifted the people a power that prevented them from dying, giving them a chance to set things right. In the end, the king of Constellation Metropole together with the people, just like Mavuika with the heroes, decided to give back the heavenly gift they had been using. In Simulanka they restored the stars in the sky, which in Tevat are Irminsul fruits, they're part of the ley lines. Lastly, when the Lord of the Night said,
"The one you wish to know about? I call her the ruler of death."
she was not referring to the unknown god we're looking for, Sasti, mainly because Yohualtekutin has no idea what happened to the Traveler 500 years ago. She's been stuck and asleep in Natlan all along, so she doesn't even know Kanria existed, reason why Guthred's origins are a mystery to her. The last goddess of Simulanka though has become a bit of a problem after 5.1. In Simulanka, she is the goddess of fate, Ander's daughter, and she is represented just like the Moirai as free statues on a floating island, so I believe that there was a shade of fate. But the Lord of the Night told us that fate, unlike death, is not a rule. It just defines when and how a rule is going to be applied. This seems to mean that while the shades preside over the rules, whoever decides fate is a different entity, namely the Heavenly Principles. According to Nahida, or at least the way she spoke about them, the Heavenly Principles are a single being, and this has been repeated by the Lord of the Night when she called them the Almighty, which in Chinese is singular. We also learned that Ronova answers to the Heavenly Principles, and according to them,
she was seen as having significantly overstepped her authorities as a shade,
and their disappointment caused Ronova to wallow in self-pity. Ronova was also defined as an emissary of the Heavenly Principles, just like Sasti is the sustainer of the Heavenly Principles. And lastly, what Nahida theorized in 3.2 was confirmed by Mavuika. The Heavenly Principles are the first descender who fought against the dragons. My take on all this is simple. The Heavenly Principles are the second throne of the sky, the second who came. Now, going back to the shades, I've never really believed the artifact theory, but now that we've been officially introduced to the ruler of death, it actually makes sense. The way I see it, it's simple. The plume of death represents the ruler of death, Ronova. The sense of time represents the ruler of time, Istroth. As a consequence, the flower of life represents the ruler of life, so again Sasti. And lastly, because the shades are 4, the goblet of Ionothem, also known as Cup of Emptiness in Chinese, represents the ruler of the void, which I believe to be Phanes, the shade that created the whole microcosm, and as always I know that many of you think that the Primordial One is Phanes, I don't. I also know that many will say that the ruler of the void is the Hersha of the void, so she has to be the one that looks like Yana, so Sasti. Yes, but this is not Honkai Impact, so does it really have to be an exact copy? Also, do you remember when I talked about a hypothetical ruler of the Abyss? Well, I might be thinking that when Phanes disobeyed the Primordial One and used the eggshell to separate the universe from the microcosm of the world, so Tevat, instead of breaking the egg and create the world, it might have been confined into the Abyss, and now it's attacking Tevat to take back what it created in the first place. As for why I think the ruler of the void might be behind the Electro Divine Throne, it's just that the Abyss portals usually has small lightnings all around them, and the Raiden Shogun literally slashes reality with her blade, opening rifts that look like the Abyss. Anyway, just for fun, if I had to pick an Ars Goetia name for Phanes, I would go for Belial, the first angel/demon created after Lucifer, but despite that, Belial was later identified with the devil itself, just like in Before Sun and Moon, the Primordial One may have been Phanes, so the people back then were also similarly confused. Anyway, we still need to talk about the last artifact piece, the Crown of Logos, which in Chinese is the Crown of Reason, and Logos in Greek is the word of God, the divine reason, the law. As a consequence, also considering how the symbol has 3 tips, it should represent the heavenly principles, the laws of Tevat, the god above the shades. Lastly, about the heavenly principles, Apep told us that they gain the right to reshape the world, while Enjo said that they have hidden everything that existed before their arrival, which takes me to the fragments in the sky. From what we can see, it's an oblate spheroid, so a flattened sphere, and the patterns on it kinda remind me of the world from Star Rail's loading screen. Furthermore, we can see one of the pieces in a crater near the ancestral temple, and beside the very unique pattern, it shines grey with our elemental sight, which means that it will probably move in a future quest, just like the platform behind the Opera Epiclese. As for what those fragments used to be, we can only barely speculate. Saying that it's a moon seems too easy, even though we created a moon in Simulanka, but considering these fragments are hidden behind the fake sky, they probably have something to do with the Primordial One, the creator the Lord of the Night talked about, meaning that they could be its eternal throne that was destroyed in the war against the second Who came. Another possibility is that it is the pearl-colored palace of the Moon Sisters from the Moon Piercer's description, also known as the Lunar Palace from the records of Julian, the collection of folk stories from Liyue. Sadly, we have basically no info about it at all, so we can't figure it out, although I am working on a new theory about the structure of that. Still, who knows, maybe in 5.2 we will learn about it from the Masters of the Nightwind, or maybe Orko will help us uncover the truth behind this fallen star. And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Genshin Impact Theory videos, consider subscribing. As I said before, my next video is gonna be about the Harbingers and the Gnosis, so I hope I'll see you there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, over and out.